Hi everyone, my name is Aleksandra Kulawska and I'm a solutions engineer here at SnapLogic. In this recording, I want to talk you through our data validation assistant, which allows you to automate your data validation process with the use of generative AI on SnapLogic. So typically what we're seeing is that as a business, you might have an application that you sell to your customers, or perhaps a platform or a data system that you provide to your customers. In order for your customers to be able to access the application or the platform, they may need to send you sample data files for you to validate how good their data is before it's loaded into your platform. Now this process, and this is what we're seeing quite a lot in industry, is typically very manual and time consuming. It often takes multiple rounds of iterations, multiple rounds of fixes before the data is ready to be loaded into the destination. Moreover, it can take your consultants quite a lot of time to actually clean the bad data. As a result, this process is time-consuming, it can extend project timelines, and it is not the most efficient use of anyone's time. In order to combat this and to streamline this data validation process, we've built a generative AI application that allows your customers to self-serve. So what it allows your customers to do is to essentially upload their sample of the data into our web app and then receive instant feedback on the quality of that data in relation to your specifications. So you'll see that in the demo in a second, but just to iterate here, your customer will take their sample data, upload it, and then based on how well that data complies with your business's specifications, that could be with your application or with your data platform or with your system, the customer will receive the feedback and recommendations on what they need to do to fix that data in order for it to be loaded correctly. The way that the customer will receive that feedback is through a traffic light system. Red indicating that the file has some critical errors, orange indicating that there might be some issues with the data, but it should be relatively easy to fix, and green indicating that the data is ready to go. This is the front end of the data validation assistant. As you can see, the first thing we have to do is to submit a sample of the data. So let's try it. Firstly, I'm going to select data that I know is not compliant with the specifications. I can see a little preview of this data in terms of the different columns and rows, and if I'm happy with what I've submitted, I can then click Run Validation, which will trigger a SnapLogic pipeline that will validate our data using large language models. As we can see, the output of the validation is red. There are some issues with this data. When I scroll down, I can see more details around what is wrong with this data. Firstly, we have some critical errors. We are missing a required field, which is the last order date. Secondly, we have some warnings around empty values, negative values, or unusually high values. Given those warnings and the errors, we have recommendations of what to do to fix the data and a conclusion that the file is not ready to be loaded into the test environment. Now let's try the same with a file that we know is compliant with our specifications. I can now choose to submit a different file, this one, and again, I see a little preview of the data. I can see what it is that I'm submitting, and then I can click on Run Validation. This file is compliant. It's perfect in terms of its fields, its rows, so my validation status is green. The conclusion I'm getting that the file is ready for the test environment loading because all the fields are present and the data appears to be in the correct format. Now, this is a relatively simple example because this is looking at your customer sample data and your one specification. But if required, we can have multiple different specification documents for different applications and different data systems. So you could really build this out to be a lot more complex if that is your use case. All of this is possible with the use of the Gen AI Builder, which is a capability of the SnapLogic platform that allows you to easily connect to a number of different large language models within your existing SnapLogic pipelines. So there are three components to the GenAI Builder. Firstly, Snap Packs. This is where we give you the ability to connect directly into different large language models through the use of API. We have a number of different models with different versions, so you always find one that you might want to use in your projects. Secondly, we also give you the ability to connect to a wide variety of helpers that help you work with large language models or with their outputs. For example, vector databases or chunking abilities. The second component of the GenAI Builder is pipeline patterns. We have a library of pipeline patterns for different purposes that allow you to easily build new GenAI applications and new GenAI workflows. Finally, we show you the results of the GenAI pipelines through a front end. We typically use Streamlit, which you can build yourself, but we can integrate with any type of front end that you may have within your business. Now, the real power of SnapLogic comes with how easy and quick it is to build and deploy generative AI applications. If you were to write your own data validation application, let's say in Python, this process could take you around 3 weeks. What you would need to do is figure out how to connect to your different data sources, how to connect to a large language model API. You would need to test those connections to make sure that they last into the future, as inevitably those different packages change versions. And then finally, you would have to build the front end before releasing it to the audience. With SnapLogic, this process took us a day. Because of the use of low-code, no-code connectors and the way in which we connect to large language models easily through those, this process was very easy and was very quick, and so we could see value very quickly as well. Thank you very much for listening to this recording. If the Data Validation Assistant is something that you're interested in, or if you'd like to hear more about SnapLogic, please get in touch. Thanks!